Rufus, where's your bone? Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
We're outside, as you can tell, because, well, we're outside. We put some row covers over the blackberries last night because it was going to be cold.
Right.
What was the temperature this morning when you went out?
It was 26 when I was out with Rufus this morning. So it could have been a degree or two colder than that. The forecast was for 30, but we know historically that we are almost always colder than what the forecast is. Now, if we'd been really concerned, I would have put small hoops under here to provide more of an airspace, but we weren't. We're not dealing with something that's a tropical plant or something. We just wanted to protect the blackberries just a little bit.
Now what we're going to do is go ahead and roll these row covers back, I think, and then put the rocks on the side so that it doesn't blow away, because unlike the forecast, we're actually going to have more wind today.
Right. It is not supposed to get quite as cold tonight, but we'll be watching that over the course of the day, because a lot of times the forecast changes dramatically over the course of the day.
It changes a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're what we call the Intermountain West. That means we're between the Sierra Mountains and the Rockies, and it's a hard area to forecast.
And we have wind that we weren't supposed to have today.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we had wind we weren't supposed to have on Tuesday, so...
Yeah. Nothing new there.
Well, let's go ahead and get this done so that you can get on some other things and I can get on to some software I have to deal with.
Yeah. Which one you want to do first?
Let's just go ahead and do this one.
Should we just take it all to the end?
Yeah, I guess. I was hoping we'd be able to just roll it to the side, but the wind's coming up too high.
No.
Usually we have the row covers on hoops, but actually putting this row cover down the way we did will protect a little bit lower. Now, as Irene mentioned, if it gets to be really cold, we'll put some short hoops underneath this that will lift it up. How far? About 4 or 5 inches?
You can adjust the hoops. Usually they lifts it up about 10 inches.
Nice big rock.
Yep.
Well, shall we do the other one now?
Yep. This is in 2 pieces because we were just sort of piecing it together quickly yesterday.
Want to do it the same direction, or we want to start at this end instead?
I would just assume push them that way.
Okay.
Because we have a separate piece here that needs to come out anyway. So we're not going to really be able to roll this up. Yeah. I would say they're doing pretty good, actually. They have a little damage that was on them when we got them, but I don't think we have any new damage. You know, when you rip somebody out of the ground, even if they are in a plug, it still does some damage. We definitely have some damage on them, but it should be okay. I need to water them again today. I've been watering them every day to make sure that they stay moist.
Irene's busy getting the cattle tank empty that we have over there because we need to move it so I can finish digging the French drain along the back of the studio.
Hey everybody, it's Irene with BrainStormAcres. And I'm in the kitchen. You haven't seen me here in a while. But we've actually been here plenty. Because we live off-grid and it's a long drive to a good restaurant. We are here usually at least 3 times a day, sometimes in between. And one of the things that happened this year was we went to can a bunch of chicken stock. Okay? Something we do all the time. Chicken stock, turkey stock. Anytime we have leftover meat and we make some sort of a stock out of it, we can it so that it's shelf stable and we can have it on zero notice. You know, I mean, a bowl of chicken soup takes walking into the pantry, getting a thing of chicken broth, and then deciding what vegetables you're going to throw into it, noodles or whatever. Perfect fast food. So, we went to use this canner, which we have used a zillion times before. The reason we choose to use this canner sometimes is because it is smaller. We have an all-American canner, and it's a gorgeous thing, but we purposefully bought a huge one so that when we're canning like God's own collection of something big, we can do it all in one batch. We don't have to do a whole stack of small batches. But we kept this one because there are times when you only have, you know, a half dozen jars of something, and you really don't want to have to get the big monster out, fire it up, and all that other stuff. Well, we put the canner on the pressure canner on the stove, and everything's set up same as always, and I could not get it to seal. We've had it for a number of years. We were actually trying just this morning to figure out where we bought it, and honestly, I have no idea. You know, it was probably one of those things where you buy it and you mean to use it and you don't get around to using it, and finally you use it. But it's never been abused. We did mostly water canning for a long time, which is great for things like pickles and stuff like that that are naturally acidic. They don't need to be pressure canned. But in the last few years, we've done a lot more things like sauces that require, tomato sauces, if they have vegetables and stuff in them, require pressure canning. If you don't want to add acid to regular tomato sauce, you should pressure can it. If you are doing meats, they have to be pressure canned in order to be safe. Was not happy. Henry and I did a quick shuffle. He brought in the big all-American canner. We filled it up with water. We fired it up, you know, and it took forever because it's a monster canner, and we had to do all the switchover and everything. We did it. It's fine. The broth is fine. It's safe and all that sort of stuff. This is a Miro canner. Reputable brand. Let's get a replacement part for it. Well, they don't have a seal for this. Maybe they got some tricky-dicky thing going on in the background that I just don't know about, and I have to do something like jump through hoops. So they have a special thing you can do there where you send somebody an email and they promise you they'll get back to you within 48 hours during business hours. Okay, fine. So I send them a nice little email. I give them all the information on my pressure canner. I say, you know, it's great shape. I just want to get a new seal for it. Tell me how I do this. And I wait. And then I get busy. And I go on with other things. And we don't have anything else to can. And a week and a half later, I get an email from them that says, we don't make that anymore. Throw it away and buy a new one of our new canners. And you can imagine the unkind and needing censoring words that went through my mind at that moment. Like, if I'm going to buy a new canner, you can bet your sweet bippy, as they used to say on Laugh In, that I am not going to buy yours. I will buy an All-American. So I went and I priced one, and I said, you know, I don't have $300 right now to buy this size canner as an All-American. Wish I did, but I don't. We've been through this before with other equipment. How can I get a replacement part? Certainly, someone out there has got to be making a seal that is virtually identical to the one that was in there, but that will work, which is what I'm looking for. So I thought, go to Facebook. I did some searching first online, and it was very random, and I didn't find anything that I felt confidence in. So one of the problems with random searches on Facebook is that on the internet, is you can wind up with some junk with fake reviews, and you won't know until you've paid your bill and got the junk that they sent you. And I know that for certain technical things in historic reenactment and stuff like that, I can go to Facebook. I can look for a closed group. Now, why a closed group? Well, a lot of the open groups are crap, to be honest. They are full of all kinds of trolls and idiots and obnoxious people, and that's just not really on my list of things to do right now. And so I'm looking for something that's really authentic, really authoritative, something that I can trust. So I go through and I look for pressure canning groups. And I find a couple, and I read the descriptions. I find some really out there groups that are just like, don't talk to us about safety and governmental interference and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh, not the group I'm looking for. I believe in science. I have a good sense of when I should stretch it and when I shouldn't stretch it. And when it comes to canning things like meat, I'm believing in science. Because although I might be able to accomplish something and not get caught, why do I want to risk it? I spent good money on meat. Or even if I got the meat from a friend or shot a deer or anything else like that, why would I want to risk ruining the meat and poisoning myself? Doesn't sound like a smart thing. So I go through the groups and I found one that basically says, if you don't believe in science, don't hang with us. No meanness, be nice to one another, share recipes, warn us about things you discover. You know, like if you find a cookbook and the recipes are unsafe in it, tell us about it. We want to know. So we don't have to figure out ourselves, because some of the people there would be brand new and might not have the judgment to be able to make that leap. So I'm like, okay, so I apply to be in the group. I'm accepted to the group. And then I'm busy again, and I just really don't get to it. And a week or so later, I go back on the group, and I'm like, okay, I should be able to check their file section first to see if they had a list of resources. They didn't. They had recipes and stuff, which is fine. But I'm like, okay, I can search inside that group for anyone else who has asked about getting replacement seals for these sealers, for these canners, rather. And this is a canner, this is a pressure canner, not a pressure cooker. There's a difference. Pressure cookers do not get hot enough and develop enough pressure to safely can. I have a pressure canner, a cooker, perfectly great, but this is a pressure canner. I find a reference put up by the administrator of the group that says, if you're ever looking for parts for your canners, your older ones, whether it's a pressure cooker or a pressure canner or just anything like that, here's a company. They've got an online link. They sell just about everything that you can think of, and they're reputable. They actually do know what they're talking about. Went to the website, and I'll have Henry put it in the show notes. Went to the website, looked up my stuff, and there it is. So counting shipping for $20, I was able to get a new seal. Now, the new seal is in here right now. The old seal looks like this. You know, it's your basic pressure canner thing. And honestly, I don't see anything wrong with this. It just, for whatever reason, maybe it's lost a little bit of its elasticity. It's not cracked or anything, but it wouldn't seal. And if I have something that doesn't seal, it doesn't do me any good. The newer one is more flexible. I had a little trouble getting it into place. But the ultimate test, of course, was could I get it to seal and run the pressure cooker. Definitely, it did work. I had to fiddle with it once. It's not surprising. Anytime you change a seal on something, I've had to fiddle with the seal on my Instapot before because it didn't seat quite right. So, you know, that can happen with anything. But $20 to fix my canner that I was told to throw away by the manufacturer. Now, I'm sure they in their little fuzzy heads, they said, oh, yeah, you know, crazy Americans, they'll just go, you know, buy a new one. I don't want something tiny that'll only hold a couple of pints, and I don't want something gigantic. I already have a gigantic, which is awesome. I love my All-American canner. And if I were starting from scratch and I were buying canners, I would only buy the All-Americans. Why would I want to make life difficult for myself when I could go with a reputable company in the United States with easily replaceable parts. This website that I found, it sells the seals, it sells the weights. If you have a canner that has a dial gauge on it that's been cracked or damaged or something else, or you need one of these safety replacement things, they've got it all of it. For pressure cookers, for pressure canners, all kinds of stuff. So we've been through this kind of a problem before, not with a pressure canner, but with another piece of equipment. We had a small air compressor that I was using down in the studio, and it did not get a huge amount of use. You know, a couple times a month, I'd run it for maybe an hour. Not continuous, you know, like it turns on, fills up the tank, shuts off, sits there for a while, you know. One day it just fries, okay? So Henry takes it apart a little bit, figure out what's wrong. Figures out what he needs to replace. The price for the new replacement part was virtually identical to the price for a brand new air compressor. Now that's a broken system. We prefer to repair things. But if the price is essentially the same for a new one that comes with a 1-year warranty, or a part which, if the thing fails again, they're just going to say you did it wrong. This bugged me. This really ticked me off when they said throw it away and buy a new one. We make all kinds of good ones now. And I'm like, I don't think so. That is not the way to win my favor, is to tell me to throw away a perfectly good pot. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do with it? I can make it into a flower pot. But why would I want to when there's nothing wrong with it? It's never been frozen. It's never been dropped. It's never, you know, any of those things that you're not supposed to do to pressure cookers. You know, that doesn't mean that you should run out and buy some junko pressure cooker from a thrift store that's obviously been beat to, you know what. I was at the local community center at a meeting one time when somebody brought in some pressure cookers. And one of the guys said, well, my wife's been asking for a pressure cooker. Do you think I should buy any of those? And I said, no. The one aluminum one was so badly corroded that it had pits all over it. And it looked like it had been outside for 20 years. Neither of them had seals. I wouldn't trust that they were missing the weights. And in at least one case, the pressure valve was broken on it. I told him, I said, they're not that expensive. Buy her a new one. If you love your wife and you don't want her to blow up the kitchen, buy her a new one. It's worth it knowing the history of this, knowing it has not been abused, knowing that we've always taken good care of it and not done stupid things with it. That's worth it to try and buy a new seal. That's no different than, I have a half-dozen different seals for my Instapot, because if we cook something really savory like carnitas in it, I don't want my next batch of yogurt to taste like carnitas, because the seal smells like, you know, carnitas. So it's one of those things where you do have to use a little common sense, but this is what I call success. It worked. We now have a pressure cooker that is small again to go with our monster one, and it means the next time that we need to can chicken stock or something else small, you know, this will hold 12, I think this is a 12-quart pressure cooker, which means it holds something like 8 quarts. This is a really basic one. Both my All-American and this one are weighted pressure cookers. To me, the pressure gauge on the All-American is a nice touch. It gives me a sense for the pressure that's beginning to form in the pot and stuff like that. But what I'm relying on to make my canning session safe is actually the pressure gauge. And my pressure gauge is adjusted to the altitude that I live at, because the altitude that you live at determines at what point water will boil, and therefore you need a certain amount of pressure in order to get the water hot enough to make the food cook hot enough. So, enough talking. I have other stuff to do, but I wanted to share our success, because so many times, alarms. So many times you get the answer of, oh, just throw it away and buy a new one. Well, sometimes you have to. But for something like this, $20 instead of, I think it was $3.64 plus shipping. You know, $20 was worth a risk. It really was. So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because obviously we're going to be doing all kinds of stuff. Don't forget to keep brainstorming, because obviously we are it helps to not get suckered by companies that tell you to throw stuff away sometimes. Bye.